Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second in our state sponsorship webinar series. Wherever you are in the world, I hope you are well, and thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going for a deep dive into the state sponsorship criteria. And as you may know, we are on a mission to provide you with correct, clear and current information that can help you make a decision about achieving your golden ticket to live your new life here in Australia. And I'm here to be your guide. Today, our journey is going to take us around Australia, where we will uncover the requirements for each of the states and territories in relation to state sponsorship. And remember that you can only access state sponsorship, state or territory sponsorship, once you have your expression of interest submitted. So let's get started. Let's start with the Australian Capital Territory, where we have the following planning level. As I mentioned last week, this is a planning level. It's not a quota that must be filled each year, but it gives an idea of the number of visas that may be granted and the spread between the 190 permanent and the 491 temporary visa. So Canberra offers a selective system via a matrix, which we will look at in a moment. Candidates must be living and working in Canberra, and candidates must select one of the following streams: the critical skill list stream, so the occupation should be on the critical skill list. If you are already an employer-sponsored visa holder living and working in Canberra, there is a stream for you, and there is also a small business stream. So in the Canberra matrix, points are allocated against each of the following factors. Now, some of these you can work towards achieving higher points score. Things definitely in your control are improving your English score, the period of time you've lived in the ACT, what you've studied and your qualification level. Some other things may be outside your control, for example, getting a job. But there's a wide range of factors against which you will be scored. And the ACT government will select candidates with the highest score on the matrix. For small business owners, these are the minimum criteria. So you must be at least a 51% shareholder of a business which is located and actively operating in the ACT with a minimum turnover of $200,000 a year. And that business should not only be profitable, but give you an income for the figures that are mentioned there. And the business should employ at least one Australian on a part-time basis. Not only an Australian, but Australian that lives in Canberra. So let's look at the criteria across the different visas. For the 190 visa, you will select one of the three streams that is relevant to you. And you must show that you have been living in Canberra for the past 6 months and you've been working full-time for the past 6 months. And if self-employed, there's a minimum income level there. And for those who are in skill level 1 and 2, which would include managers and professionals, they must have a proficient or superior level of English, proficient being the equivalent to IELTS 7 or 65 on PTE, and superior being IELTS 8 or PTE 79. So that would be for skill level 1 and 2. Skill level 3 to 5 are exempt from that higher English requirement. And skill level 3 to 5 would include trades, occupations that require diplomas or certificates. So meeting those criteria will allow you to obtain the 190 offer. And for the 491, the criteria are similar, except instead of living for 6 months, it's reduced to 3. The work is only 3, and the work can be part-time, and the self-employed salary can be lower. Moving to neighbouring New South Wales, where there's significant number of visas available. And New South Wales also operates its own pre-selection system, and you cannot actively apply for New South Wales. You will need to be, for the 190 visa, you will need to be invited to make the application. And under the New South Wales EOI system, candidates will be ranked by their point score, their English proficiency, and then the number of years employment in the nominated occupation. So again, it is a competitive system to achieve the highest points in your occupation to be selected. Importantly, you need not be currently working in New South Wales at all or in your occupation. So that is a good concession. The only thing is the occupation list is not yet available. So when we turn to look at the criteria for the 190, it's pretty simple. You're living in New South Wales and your occupation is on the list. But until that list comes out, we won't know the breadth of the occupations available there. We would expect it to cover all the PMSOL occupations and many on the MLT SSL, but how many other occupations are available and the numbers of positions for each occupation, we don't know yet. So stay tuned and we will inform you once that information is available. For the 491 regional visa, there are two streams. In the work stream, you would be living and working in a regional area of New South Wales for 12 months. Or in the study stream, you would have completed 2 years of relevant study in the regional area. Moving over to Victoria, where you can see that there's only a small number of the regional visas available, which means that compared to the number in the permanent category, so there's quite a large number available in the permanent category. Now, Victoria also operates via a registration of interest process. So if you're interested in getting state sponsorship by Victoria, you first must submit a registration of interest and show how you meet their requirements. There is no minimum experience requirement. So in a moment, we will see that employment is one of the criteria, but you could have been employed for as little as a week or a month. Victoria has now, this financial year, a broader range of target sectors. But on the other hand, there is a focus on STEM skills and occupations at skill level 1 and 2 only for the 190 visa, or 1, 2 and 3 for the 491 visa. Let's just drill down to some of those definitions and what they mean so you can understand clearly. So STEM means occupations in any of these areas: science, technology, engineering, maths and medical. Skill level, as I mentioned before, relates to the level of qualification required for your occupation. So skill level 1, bachelor, skill level 2, diploma, and skill level 3, certificate 3, which is generally a trade certificate level. And the target sectors for Victoria are those mentioned there: health, medical research, life science, agri-food, advanced manufacturing, energy and digital. So when it comes to the specific visa requirements, for the 190, you must be living in Victoria and you must work in Victoria, but remember there's no minimum period for which you must have been working, in a target sector using your STEM skills. So you may be working in engineering, in the medical research, probably not a good example, engineering in maybe agri-food, or using science in medical research. So you need to match up the STEM skill and the target sector, and your occupation should be at that skill level 1 or 2. And your work should be closely related to the occupation which you have nominated under your EOI, and you would have obtained your skills assessment in that occupation. For the 491, It is similar, except that it's in regional Victoria and there is a wider range of occupations available. So you'll see skill level 3 is available. But remember that there's only 500 491 visas available versus 3,500 for the 190 visa. So anyone with a skill level 3 would have to apply for regional Victorian sponsorship, but that may then become competitive because of the small number of visas available. Queensland, the program is not yet opened, so we'll come back to that at the end of July. Northern Territory, very small number of visas available. The requirements include you as the main applicant and all your direct family members residing in the Territory. You must not be a current student visa holder. So they're looking for candidates who've moved on from studies and are developing their career, not just hopping from one course to the next. If your occupation has any specific criteria, then those must be met. And that could include having a job offer, having higher English, which is usually required for the medical occupations, and some occupations are only available for the 491 visa. And the Territory has two streams, the graduate and the resident stream. So the graduate stream is for those who've already completed 2 years study in the Territory, and the study needs to be in one program, so 1, 2 or 3 year degree, or in nested courses, meaning that they're interrelated. So again, avoiding candidates who've maybe hopped from one field of study to a completely different field of study. Candidates must have lived in Northern Territory for 6 months after completion of the course on a visa permitting full-time work. So that would indicate that the candidate would have moved onto a visa such as the Graduate 485 visa, or it could be the 482 employer-sponsored or the 407 trainee visa. They could be visas that allow full-time work. And even if you haven't had work, which is permitted, you should have made a genuine effort to find employment. In the resident stream, you've lived in the Territory for 2 years and you've worked in your occupation for 2 years. Again, that could have been on a 485 postgraduate visa, 482 visa, 407 visa, or there could be other visas that you might have held that have allowed you to work. And that job should be available for a further year, and the employer is not someone who's just started their business, but has been operating in the Territory for at least a year. So the graduate and resident streams are available for the 190 visa. And if we turn to the temporary 491 visa, there's a reduction in the period of time in which you must have lived in the Territory down to 12 months and full-time work of 6 months. And there are opportunities available for those living overseas if they have recent experience in their occupation and have a job offer. Now, over to the West. Western Australia will consider candidates who live in Australia, not just Western Australia, but Australia as a whole. And for those with occupations on skill level 1 and 2, if you remember, that's the bachelor degree and diploma, they must have proficient English. So that would be IELTS 7 or PTE 65. So 2 streams available for Western Australia, the graduate and the general stream. In the graduate stream, you must have completed 2 years of study in WA. Now, quite different from the requirement for Northern Territory, here you can combine any number of courses. So even if you've come to Australia on a student visa and done an English language course to commence, your studies before moving on to a vet course or a tertiary course. All of that can be included as long as the study was in Western Australia. Now, your occupation must then be on the graduate occupation list. Now, that's obviously a selective list. It does not include occupations such as secondary teacher, welfare worker, or accountant, but does include many other occupations, including cafe manager, computer network and systems engineer, and a number of medical occupations. And graduates must have worked in their occupation in Australia, so anywhere in Australia, have 6 months work experience, or have a job offer from a Western Australian employer, and have a little bit of money in your pocket as well. So that's the graduate stream. And in the general stream, candidates should have a job offer in their occupation, and their occupation should be either on what's called the WASMOL 1 or the WASMOL 2. The WASMOL 1 contains all medical occupations, and candidates with any medical occupation can access both visa streams, but must have some work experience, either 1 year in Australia or 3 years overseas. So you could be have overseas experience and have a job offer in Australia in a medical occupation and be eligible to apply in the general stream. Otherwise, your occupation can be on the WASMOL 2, and you don't need to have that minimum level of work experience. Now, the WASMOL 2 includes a broad range of occupations, including childcare centre manager, early childhood teacher, carpenter chef, IT security specialist, and software engineer. So there is a broad range of occupations available under the WASMOL 2. So you need to have a job offer and meet the occupation requirements, for example, skills assessment, etc. South Australia, their requirements are that you have an occupation on their list, not yet available. We'll get back to you on that when it's available. You must be living in South Australia. And if there are any specific requirements for your occupation, then you would need to meet those. And South Australia offers 2 programs, a Living and Working in South Australia program and a Talent and Innovators program. Remember that for either of these, you still must be living in South Australia. So in the Living and Working, you must currently live in South Australia, as I said, meet any specific occupational requirements, and you must have at least part-time work in your occupation. So if you've got 6 months work part-time, you'd be eligible for the 491, or 12 months, you may be eligible for the 190 visa. Now, there are some concessions available for those who are living and working in a regional area of SA or who have been living long-term in SA. So they will be rewarded by having some concessions. There's quite a lot of information available for South Australia, and you'll be able to read that later in the guide, which I will tell you about at the end of the presentation. So the other program for South Australia is the Talent and Innovators, where they're looking for highly skilled candidates across any of those target sectors. And there are 4 streams: employment, startup, meaning startup business, high-performing graduate, or independent talent stream. So the full details about those streams will be in our guide, but if you are involved in any of those target sectors, are living in South Australia, and believe that you have a high level of skill or talent or something to offer in terms of innovation, then this may be the program for you. Down to Tasmania, where we see that there are twice as many regional visas available than the regional temporary, than the permanent visas. And Tasmania is seeking candidates with high demand occupations: health, construction, engineering, community services. And they're looking for well-rounded candidates who may have family members who have useful attributes, and for those that have been already participating within the community. So Tasmania has a study stream, and you can compare the requirements here for the 190 against the 491. So for the 190, 2 years study, lived in Tassie for 2 years, all family live in Tassie, and you've got a career plan, whereas the 491 only need to have completed 1 year study in Tasmania and you're still currently living there. And there are some specific requirements depending on the visa you have held. So if you are studying, which most people would be, on the 500 student visa, then you must have a degree or have been studying a degree or diploma, or it's directly related to one of those priority skill areas. And if you studied on another visa, for example, if you're partner of a, or even yourself on an employer-sponsored visa, then you're limited to being eligible if your occupation is one of the high demand areas of health, construction, engineering, community services. So you can see that those who've studied on the student visa have got a broader range of study areas or occupational skill areas in order to access this program. In the working stream, for the 190, your occupation must be on the list, not yet available. And for the 491, your occupation could be on any of the general skilled migration lists, so the medium and long-term skills shortage list or the short-term skilled occupation list, but there may be some further restrictions if you're at a lower skill level. So levels 4 and 5 might be certificate or diploma level qualifications. Regardless of the visa you're going for, all your family must live in Tasmania, meaning your direct family unit, husband, wife, partner, dependent children, and you must have a work profile in Tasmania. So you must have worked full-time at least 6 months in your occupation for an established Tasmanian business. The graduate or student stream and the working stream both require you to live in Tasmania, but there is also, there is also an offshore stream, which is good news for candidates overseas, but only the 491 visa is accessible because there's no, for those who are already living in Tasmania, there's some sort of evidence of commitment to living in Tasmania. For those coming from overseas, who maybe have never set foot in Tasmania before, the 491 allows a trial period. It is invitation only. The candidate should not have lived in any other state of Australia. So that means they've either studied or lived in Tasmania before but have left the country, or have never been to Australia before. And the occupation must be on that Tasmanian skills list, which is not yet available, and have settlement funds and have done some employment research. So if a candidate meets all those requirements and has ticked the box for Tasmania 491 in their EOI, Tasmania will look and see if they're interested in offering you an invitation to make an application. So as you can see, there are many different requirements across the different states and territories. There's no real common thread other than commitment to living in that state or territory via past residence, study or work profile, or a future profile through a job offer, research and settlement funds. Now, whilst we've looked at all those criteria, there are two more important things, or two more important factors that will play a part in you determining whether you will or can apply for a state or territory nomination. And those are the occupation lists. And as you've seen, as we went through, a number of states and territories do not yet have their lists available. So it is important to know whether your occupation is on the list, and also the strategy. So you may find that you have a number of opportunities. You may have lived in different states. You may be able to get a job offer in a different state. You may meet requirements across different states or territories. So working out how to make a decision is very strategic and will take into account factors such as the visa you're on and the expiry of that visa, and what further visas you may be able to achieve in Australia in order to continue living here and access state sponsorship. May require you to improve English language ability or to seek employment. And there may be other things to take into account, such as your age. If you're going to turn the corner in terms of points for age, you may have a limited time frame in which you can take action. So in terms of the occupations, we will next week in our session 3 be looking at hopefully 3 or 4 occupations in detail to see what opportunities are available across Australia for those occupations. So we've had some of you write in and advise which occupations you'd like us to cover. If you haven't done that and you would like us to cover your occupation, please send us an email. And in the 4th session, we will be going through the strategy, the process of how to put it all together. Now, as I mentioned, there's a lot of information about state and territory nominations, and some of the more detailed criteria we didn't put in the slides, but they will be available in our state sponsorship guide for July, which will be coming to you on an email tomorrow, and you'll be able to read through all those requirements. You'll also get access to a link for a recording of this video, and you can replay it at your leisure. Next week, as I said, target occupations. We'd love to be there to help you. Some of you have already taken advantage of our special offer to book in an appointment with me. So feel free to do that if you would like to do that now, rather than waiting till the end of the series. That is completely up to you. Otherwise, please stay tuned next week and check on your emails for your state sponsorship guide. And we look forward to speaking to you soon, and please stay well. Thank you for coming today. Speak soon. Bye-bye.